He's Thundarr, I'm E-Lightning, and welcome to Sports Storm.
Today we will be revealing our NBA Mock Draft 2.0. We did this, I think about a week or 10 days ago. So let's get right into it. Still holding the number 1 overall pick in the 2016 NBA Draft. The Philadelphia 76ers just fired Sam Hinkie. Who do you have them taking at number 1 overall?
I have them taking Ben Simmons. He's the best overall player in the draft. And while he doesn't fix their three-pointer needs, I still feel like you got to draft the best overall player. He's not a center or a power forward. I mean, you could play him at power forward, but I think his natural position would be a point small forward. I mean, he averages like 19 points, 11-point-something rebounds, and 5 assists. That's good for the 76ers. I think you got to select the best overall player here.
I'm going to disagree with you here. I think they're going to take Brandon Ingram out of Duke. Like you said, Ben Simmons does not fix their three-point issue. They're one of the worst three-point shooting teams in all of the NBA. Brandon Ingram is a versatile small forward who has a good inside game and still a pretty good outside game. I mean, I think the Kevin Durant comparisons are a little too high. I see him more as a Tayshaun Prince. I honestly think Ben Simmons,
But Tayshaun Prince was like all defense.
Well, I think Brandon Ingram is better at defense than Ben Simmons ever will be. I think just a versatile forward. I mean, obviously Ben Simmons can play as like that ball handler role, but I'm not sure that's what the Philadelphia 76ers need right now. I would not be surprised to see them possibly trade down in this draft because it is one of the weaker drafts we've had in recent years, or possibly trade this pick to another team that might need Ben Simmons more and get future picks, which is kind of the Sixers style of going.
I don't think they should trade down. I think they kind of need this, and no matter if you get Brandon Ingram or Ben Simmons, I say you need to get one of the two. So I would definitely not even trade out of the top two, unless you want to trade down to get a more strategical position to get like a better point guard or shooting guard. Like if you want to trade to 6 and 7 range,
I wouldn't be surprised to see them trade down to New Orleans. Because New Orleans
that would be a smart.
New Orleans might pop up, try to get a
done. Jamal Murray.
Exactly. All right, on to the second overall pick, the Los Angeles Lakers. Kobe's retiring this year, passing the torch to, we're not really sure right now. It might be D'Angelo Russell, Julius
Randle.
Yeah, but who do you have him taking at number 2?
So you see, I think Ben Simmons and Brandon Ingram, I think, are the lock for top 2. So I feel like you go with Brandon Ingram here because you didn't select Ben Simmons because Ben Simmons was gone number 1 overall. Obviously, match up D'Angelo Russell and Julius Randle and then you get kind of a young big 3, basically, that can develop into your new dynasty with Brandon Ingram being a really elite 3-and-D wing that can and then you have D'Angelo Russell, the distributor superstar. You have Julius Randle down low. That's a potent combination if you get Brandon Ingram here.
I haven't taken Ben Simmons from LSU. You know, D'Angelo Russell and Ben Simmons have that connection in recent years playing in Australia. And also pairing him up with Julius Randle. Like you said, big 3 for the future. I think Ben Simmons also is a glaring need for a Lakers team that needs a star player for the future. I think Ben Simmons will absorb all the publicity and the whole thing. Oh, he's the next.
Well, he's been scouted since he was in like middle school for.
Exactly. All right, on to the third overall pick, the Phoenix Suns. Who do you have them taking?
So for the Phoenix Suns, I have them selecting Jalen Brown. They currently have no good small. PJ Tucker is old. I see them letting him go as he's becoming a free agent. You have TJ Warren, but TJ Warren's a complete scorer and still not fully developed yet. So I feel like you go with Jalen Brown here. He offers you defense immediately. I think he's one of the best defensive wings in the draft, and he gives you a wing for the future. So now you have an offensive and a defensive wing. That's a good rotation to have. And plus, you have a pick later in the lottery here to go get a center or another position that you need.
I haven't taken a big man. I think this is by far their biggest weakness. I mean, when you have Alex Len and John Lure and Tyson Chandler leading your big man core, that's not a good thing. I haven't taken Dragan Bender out of Croatia. He's not putting up monster stats, but neither was Kristaps Porzingis a few years ago. I'm not saying he's going to be.
A few years ago?
Or last year. No, but I'm not saying he's going to have the immediate impact that Porzingis had, but I think the Suns are desperate for a big man, and I think they need to take this risk on, I think, the best power forward in the draft. On to the fourth overall pick, the Boston Celtics traded this pick in the Kevin Garnett-Paul Pierce trade with the Nets. Who do you have Boston taking at the number 4 slot?
I have them selecting Jakob Poeltl. They have no true center. Jared Sullinger is a power forward by trade. Kelly Olynyk is also kind of a power forward by trade. and they're losing a lot of big men in free agency. I mean, they already got rid of David Lee. Amir Johnson's leaving. You kind of don't know the future of the rest of them. So I feel like you go get Jakob Poeltl here. He's the best. I think he's one of the best true centers in the draft. I mean, he rebounds, plays defense. We even discussed him for Defensive Player of the Year in one of our earlier videos. I think you need that with the Celtics, and it gives you another good piece so you can go out and get a superstar in free agency. Yeah. I think that's their two needs, really.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do believe Jakob Poeltl is one of the best defensive, probably the best defensive big man in this draft. Boston has a glaring need at post defense, but I think they have an even more glaring need at outside shooting. They ranked about 13th in the NBA in three-pointers attempted and 27th in three-point percentage, and there's no other way to fix your three-point issues without selecting the National Player of the Year, Buddy Hield out of Oklahoma. I mean,
wasn't that Denzel Valentine? Didn't he end up winning AP Player of the Year?
No, but Naismith and Oscar Robertson, so he technically won the National Player of the Year, 2 out of the 3 big awards. But National Player of the Year, Buddy Hield, led Oklahoma on a Final Four run of the tournament. I mean, he was averaging over, I'd say, 25 points. He's just lighting it up from the three-point line. A lot of people compare him to J.J. Redick, but I think he'll be more effective than J.J. Redick was. I think he's more two-way. I think he's more of an inside.
I definitely think Buddy Hield is better than J.J. Redick.
I mean,
J.J. Redick, all he does is shoot threes. I feel like Buddy Hield has more ability. I feel like Buddy Hield is a better passer and can also drive if need be.
Yeah, Buddy Hield also creates his shot much better than J.J. Redick.
J.J. Redick is just a catch and shoot.
Exactly. All right, on to the 5th overall pick, the Minnesota Timberwolves, already stacked with talent. Who do you have them taking?
I'm selecting Buddy Hield. I think shooting guard is their one weakness in this developing young lineup. And imagine and their point guard is a little bit but Ricky Rubio can distribute, and imagine him kicking it out to Buddy Hield who can shoot threes. I mean, that's better than Shabazz Muhammad can do. And then you still have Wiggins and Towns. I mean, that is an elite young core if you get Buddy Hield, and it just continues to add to the mass amounts of young talent. And eventually they could be a powerhouse in the West if they get a spot-up three-point shooter and a player who can create his own shot, as per mentioned earlier. I think Buddy Hield is the pick because he's still available on my draft.
All right, on my draft, I take the second. Well, some people say the best shooting guard, second best shooting guard. I'm taking Jamal Murray out of Kentucky. He averaged 20 points, 5 boards, and 2 assists. He fits more of the shooting guard role than he does the point guard. A lot of people say he's a dual guard fit, but I think he's a great fit because Zach LaVine is kind of that way too. So I see in the future having a starting lineup of Zach LaVine and Jamal Murray, whichever way you want to put them at point guard, shooting guard. Then you got Wiggins, Karl-Anthony Towns, Kevin Garnett. Well, probably not next year, but Gorgui Dieng. So I think an elite young lineup, great for the future. I think Hield or Jamal Murray would be a great pick here if they're still on the board. On to the 6th overall pick. The New Orleans Pelicans have a superstar in Anthony Davis, not much of a supporting cast. Who do you have him taking here?
I'm taking Chris Dunn, the point guard out of Providence. He was in the running for National Player of the Year through most of the season. They have Anthony Davis, who is a bona fide superstar in this league. With Drew Holiday's transition to shooting guard, and even if Drew Holiday hadn't transitioned to shooting guard, I still feel like Chris Dunn is better than Drew Holiday. And Tyreke Evans, he's kind of a point forward, but I feel like if you get a true point guard here that can manage your offense, I think you've got a good step in the right direction.
I also have them taking Chris Dunn out of Providence. I mean, I see them a lot of comparisons have him going as like a John Wall. I don't see him.
I see him as a Kyle Lowry.
Well, I think he's faster than Kyle Lowry. I think he's more athletic. I see him as a Reggie Jackson for the Pistons. I think he has a good amount of athleticism, just not the speed and athleticism of John Wall in the vision. But I think he will be a good point guard to support Anthony Davis in New Orleans. On to the 7th overall pick, the Denver Nuggets. Who do you have him taking?
I have them taking Jamal Murray, as you said. Averaged 20 points as a freshman. That's really good. I mean, second best shooting guard, kind of an if guard. Gary Harris is not getting it done at the shooting guard. Your big men are set with those young European bigs. You got Emmanuel Mudiay that you just grabbed. I feel like if you get a shooting guard here, once again, you have a good developing young lineup. Jamal Murray is a pure scorer. They kind of need that. Danilo Gallinari can do it in spurts. Like, he'll have like a 25-point game, and then he'll put up like 6 the next game. So with Nia Nagari kind of carrying the offense every 3 nights, basically, you need a scorer that will give you, I think in the future, that can give you 20 every night.
Yeah, all right. I have them taking Domantas Sabonis out of Gonzaga. I mean, he's been a huge riser after March Madness happened. I mean, he totally outplayed Jakob Poeltl in that second-round game. I mean, his numbers are amazing. He's averaging 17 points, 12 rebounds, and still 2 assists. I mean, he's 6'10 and 209 pounds. I think a lot of people have, an Ivan Rabb and Henry Ellenson, but I think Gonzaga's Domantas Sabonis will be more of an immediate impact for the Denver Nuggets. On to the 8th overall pick. Already have DeMarcus Cousins. Who do you have them taking?
I have the Kings selecting Domantas Sabonis. As you said, absolute beast, outplayed my number 4 pick. I don't think he played better all season, but obviously the points and the rebounds are really excellent there with 17 and 12. Obviously, you pair him up next to Willie Cauley-Stein, pure defense. Domantas Sabonis can give you that offense if you pair him up there with DeMarcus Cousins or Willie Cauley-Stein. Adds another great piece to that front court. And that offense that already has Rudy Gay who can score and Rajon Rondo distributing all around. That offense could be very potent if you get Domantas Sabonis.
At number 8, I have the Sacramento Kings taking Henry Ellenson out of Marquette. I mean, this guy was basically averaging a double-double, getting 17 and 10. One of the more underrated power forwards in this draft. I mean, I think it's mostly because Marquette didn't get into the NCAA tournament, but I think Henry Ellenson, as a true freshman, played at very elite stats in the Big East. I think he's one of the better power forwards in this draft. Slide him in next to DeMarcus Cousins. I think you have a great lineup for the future there in Sacramento. On to the 9th overall pick, the Toronto Raptors, 2nd seed in the East as of now. Who do you have them taking?
I have them taking Ivan Rabb. You see, you have Jonas Valanciunas, who's been, you don't know what the status of he is. You have a super all-star backcourt that's really good. I say you need forwards, and Ivan Rabb, young player, got good numbers, kind of led Purdue through that Big Ten tournament, defeating a lot of good teams. I feel like I've got to go with Ivan Rabb here. You can develop him into your other front court stalwart, and if you pair him up with that all-star backcourt, as aforementioned, he can be a very good player for years to come.
I think you meant he led California through the Pac-12 tournament. You said Purdue.
Sorry.
But it's all right. I also have them taking Ivan Rabb. I think their glaring need is power forward right now, and Henry Ellenson and Sabonis are off the board already. You could argue for Deonte Davis or a Marquise Chris here, but I think Ivan Rabb is more of the true talent, and he didn't put up terrible numbers. He didn't necessarily live up to the expectations he was supposed to.
I think he still has loads of potential, though. Like all of that Cal team. I think the loads of potential, because the Raptors don't really need an instant impact player. They can afford to develop him, because I feel like Kyle Lowry can still be good for a couple, maybe 3 more years, right? DeMar DeRozan still has a whole future ahead of him, as he's only around 25. I think you can afford to develop a player like Ivan Rabb, as not many other teams in this lottery can.
Yeah. So the one thing about Ivan, never mind. On to the 10th overall pick, the Milwaukee Bucks. With Greek the Freak moving to point guard, who do you have them taking at this 10th overall slot?
I have them taking Dragan Bender, as you guys said, a very underrated big man, really good. He still managed to produce a little bit, but he had very limited minutes, so you can't really read into the stats that much. But as you said, could be a new Porzingis. Won't be as good as Kristaps,
yeah,
but he will be a good stretch four. I see him being kind of like a Nikola Mirotic, just bigger almost. So I feel like you got to go with Dragan Bender here if you're Milwaukee, as you don't have a good power forward, and as you said, what's his name out of Duke?
Jabari Parker.
Yeah, Jabari Parker. I think he can play small forward as well.
All right, I think with Giannis moving to point guard, I think they have a glaring need at small forward. You can keep Parker at the power forward. On my draft, Jalen Brown, another player people consider to be in the top 5, but I think after that tournament loss, I think he's just kind of sliding down boards. I think he's would be a steal here for Milwaukee at number 10. I mean, great 3-and-D wing. It might take a few years to develop, but, I mean, so does this entire Bucks team. I think if you add him at that small forward position, they're going to play small ball, but they will be one of the best small ball teams out there. On to the 11th overall pick, the Orlando Magic. Who do you have them selecting?
So Vooch is currently playing on the bench. He's pure offense. They have no good defensive center. Andrew Nicholson plays there. I think you need a center. Diamond Stone here fits that need. played great for Maryland during the tourney run, Big Ten tournament, regular season. Is a complete package, can still develop. I think you've got to go with Diamond Stone. Still best true center on the board at this point. And you don't want to get Skull Abissier here or A.J. Hammons. I feel like you got to go with the player that produced potential, perfect balance for Orlando here.
I definitely agree with them taking a more defensive center, but Jakob Poeltl is still on my board, I think, because he got outplayed so much. Not necessarily saying he will slip down this far, but in my draft, he has. I think not a lot of teams have a glaring need at true center, but Orlando has no post defense as of now. I think Jakob Poeltl, it would also be an absolute steal here at number 11. On to the 12th overall pick, the Phoenix Suns again had the 3rd overall pick in this draft. Who do you have?
It's the Houston Rockets.
Never mind. At number 12, the Houston Rockets. Who do you have them taking?
I have them taking here Demetrius Jackson. Obviously, I think he's the second best point guard behind Chris Dunn. Some people may not agree with me, but Patrick Beverly is not, and Jason Terry's retiring. Patrick Beverly isn't getting it done for you on a night-in, night-out basis. Demetrius Jackson can distribute to James Harden, keep whoever you have playing at the bigs open. And I feel like the Rockets have to kind of go into one of their, because they managed to stay competitive through their rebuilds, but I feel like they got to go into another one of those rebuilds here, and I feel like Demetrius Jackson can help that.
Yeah, I also haven't taken Demetrius Jackson. A lot of people could argue for a power forward like Deonte Davis or the other point guard, Tyler Ulis, but I think Demetrius Jackson has showed great ball movement and athleticism. I mean, this guy's only 6'1" and 195, and he can start dunking on people if he wants to. I mean, he still averaged 16 points, 3 boards, and 5 assists as the leading point guard at Notre Dame on their tournament run. So I think he's shown the qualities of a leader. That's what Houston needs right now. I'm not sure if James Harden really thinks of himself as the leader of this team, and if he does, he's not proving it very well. So on to the 13th overall pick, the Phoenix Suns had the 3rd overall pick earlier in the draft. Who do you have them taking?
So since I have them solving their wing need, as you said, their other big need is a big man. So I think they'll take Deonte Davis here. I think Deonte Davis has some of the best potential in the draft. I watched him at Michigan State. I feel like if you get him in the weight room, get him stronger, I feel like he could lead your front court there when you already have Eric Bledsoe, Brandon Knight, and now Jalen Brown. I think that's a good young core if you take the time to really work with Deonte Davis. And I feel like the Suns should do that. I mean, I think the Suns should go into rebuild mode here. You have a good backcourt. You have Jalen Brown you can develop. Why not get another player you can develop who will develop on the same time span, and you can have a really good team in 3 to 4 years, maybe even 2.
Earlier in the draft, I had them addressing the big man need with Dragan Bender, so I have them taking Timothy Luwawu out of France. Again, 3-and-D wing, one of the most athletic players in the draft, lots of potential. I think he will creep up in draft boards as we get closer to that, I don't even know what it is, to the NBA draft.
Elite.
But I think Timothy, he's 6'7", 205 pounds, and unlike Dragan Bender, who played overseas, he got more playing time, and he averaged 14 points, 5 boards, and 3 assists. Pretty good for a swingman. I think Phoenix, if they can get a swingman and a big man in this draft, perfect fit for them. That's why I'm taking at 13. And the final pick of this video, the Chicago Bulls' final pick of the lottery, who do you have them taking?
I have them taking Denzel Valentine, AP Player of the Year, triple doubles a lot. His stats only went down a little bit because he was hurt. I feel like as Chicago, Doug McDermott's a pure scorer, not really doing any dumb. Nikola Mirotic plays power forward, but you also have Bobby Portis there. I feel like they're all out of whack right now, and I feel like if you get Denzel Valentine, he can help you really because I think he can help support Derrick Rose as Derrick Rose declines. He can also give it to Jimmy Butler. He can score himself in little spurts, and I feel like he can overall be a piece to kind of center your offense if he's on your floor, center your subs, basically. I think he's a good 6th man for them immediately and eventually develop for them into a good starter.
Honestly, I also have him taking Denzel Valentine out of Michigan State. I mean, he still averaged 19 points, 7 boards, and 8 assists. I don't see how you undermine that. The only reason teams will pass on him is because of his age. If he did this as a true freshman, he would, I think, probably be the number 1 overall pick. But
exactly.
Because he is a 22-year-old already, a lot of teams will pass on him. But if Chicago can get him here at number 14, this would be huge for them. Like you said, very, very weak. Tony Snell and Doug McDermott at the small forward position. You can get Denzel Valentine in there, slot him in there with Jimmy Butler. I think he will start right from the get-go. Like you said, great passer. I see him a lot as a Jay Crowder. Really, once he develops, I don't see a ton of potential, but I think he would be.
I don't see a ton of potential. I just feel like he could be a good starter for them and make immediate impact, which is kind of what Chicago needs, considering they're not getting any younger.
All right, that's it for us today at Sports Farm. Like, comment what you want us to talk about in the next video. Subscribe. Peace.
Peace.